Shut up and sit down.
It's where the big boys play. SICW.
In Vogue.
Bobby's milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
Damn right. It's better than yours. Teach you, but I'd have to charge.
All right, welcome to
I can't hear that song without thinking of Ben Stiller, though.
Okay, don't welcome to the Squid Room podcast, everybody. Episode 111. We are here to watch Bobby D's milkshake, bringing the boys to his yard.
Damn right, it's better than yours.
We're not here to watch that. No. We need
What you guys
viewers,
drinking?
not.
I seen Bobby with his liquor glass. What you drinking, Bobby?
I got a little bit of Jameson in there, and I mixed a little bit of my soda with it.
What you
I'm
got,
drinking
Jim?
the same thing. I'm drinking the same thing. It's soda mixed in with a little. No, it's actually just soda this time.
He just put the
Being
Jameson
bad.
in the can, so you can't tell.
There you go.
The wine
It's like
soda.
that Sunny in Philadelphia episode where they fill the cans with wine, and then you could take
Right.
them in anywhere.
How's
All
everyone
right.
been?
Guys, we have kind of a, I would say, diverse episode. Some figures, some bucks, some disgusting, some talking about old Vince McMahon that'll never go away like the cockroach he is. So,
Wow.
And
I can't
milkshakes.
believe you said that.
yeah,
Triple
okay.
H still loves that guy. He said
Oh,
so in
Triple,
his thing speech.
yeah, well, Triple H can suck a fatty.
Fine, we'll just lead off with that topic. The
Well,
topic
you're
is
You're judged by the people you keep company with. And if Triple H is going to keep company with that man, then that's what he's going to be judged by.
well, he's got to keep company with him. It's his kid's grandpa.
He doesn't have to. It's a choice. It's a choice. If you have
Hey, I know-
alleged sexual abuser and you're going to keep them around your kids, that doesn't say much for you as your personality.
Well, so I happen to have some dealings with the law. Nothing on me, but I know for a fact that you got to prove that person personal life is the same as a grandpa life, and you got to prove both of those. So we still don't know about his case, because it's still being debated if he's going to be convicted of anything. But then you also have to prove that he's an unfit grandparent. So you can't mix the two in the eye of the law. So
Very, very diplomatic of you, and I'm sure he won't sue you at all.
anyhow,
But all three of us are on the inside, and we know better, allegedly.
so the topic that I wanted to discuss it's been all over the internet today. Multiple sources are saying that Vince McMahon wants to buy back the WWE. And I wanted to bring this up, not to have a long drawn out discussion, but at least a discussion of what you guys think. Should TKO let him buy it back? Is it worth him buying it back? I mean, he's in his 80s. How much more do you think he has to offer the wrestling business?
Well, before Endeavor and the UFC merged, he could have had a chance, but because TKO was created after the merger, and like Bobby said before we went on the air, with it being worth what, $31 billion, Bobby?
31.21 billion.
There's no way somebody's going to back him for that much money. Plus, it's a publicly traded company, and if he only wanted to purchase WWE back, they would have to file with various government agencies to take it private to turn around and sell it. I mean, he could possibly do the old 80s hostile takeover where he buys chunks of outstanding stock but I just can't see it.
I didn't really think about this angle of it until you just said he's in his 80s. So Triple H did a great job with NXT when Vince was there, and he's not been doing a great job since Vince has been gone. Maybe he would want to buy it back to give it to Triple H.
Well, so I knew one of them went private. So TKO did not go private, but Endeavor, which owns the majority stake in TKO, went private. But TKO itself remains a publicly traded company. So
So to me, it would be incredibly nuanced. I mean, I can't see him being able to do it. I do agree with Jonathan, though, that he 100% wants to buy it back, but I just don't see an avenue where he could. But I do
And,
think he had better storylines than what Triple H is coming up with and better main event matches. But Triple H has limited and taken away the independent influence, taken away the
Triple
independent worker wrestlers that go in and inject something new.
H's stories were fine in NXT. Since this whole TKO and everything, it's like they want to please the crowd too much. I think that's the biggest shift.
well, I'm going to take that a step further and maybe to the side, because it's not necessarily that they want to please the crowd, but I think they're looking to see what does please the crowd, and they're trying to enhance that part itself. And my example of this is Jimmy Uso. No, it's a Jay. Jay is the heavyweight champion, right? So they know that the fans liked like his entrance, and everyone gets involved in his entrance. And he was like the number one merch seller for a while. And I think that's why they gave him the belt. And
Because he's making the money. They want to please the fans and make more money.
Right. And and it's almost like, any promoter would. You have that one star that brings in more fans, puts more butts in seats, and you always promote that guy because he's making you money. So
That's why Bobby has both belts.
so I mean, it's been like this forever, but I think WWE should be different because WWE has more than one star. Like across the board, all the people in WWE are technically stars. So I think it's a combination of everyone that's keeping WWE going. Because honestly, if you left it up to Uso's promo skills, or if you left it up to his wrestling, I don't think he is the guy that puts butts in seats. But he can wave his arms in the air and come out with rappers, and that gets the fans excited, and that's what gets him the championship belt. I mean,
Well, regardless of my personal feelings of Triple H at the moment, because they do change, who is it by committee on who is doing the storylines, or is it just Triple H? Because I know with NXT it was both McMahon and Triple H
well,
that came up with the storylines.
when NXT first started, it was Triple H's baby. He did everything. In WWE, though, it was always a committee, but Vince McMahon had the final say. So you had a committee who came up with the storylines for each individual wrestler.
Yeah, but I'm
But
talking about
you
now
had
because he's the face.
well, I guess we'll see in this new TV series that they're talking about how they're going to start releasing, footage of how they come up with storylines, and which is totally horrible for the business. I mean, the business has been outed so much. You would think they would try to keep a little bit of dignity, but I guess not, because everyone keeps talking about this new TV show, and it hasn't been announced yet. I think the name has, but I don't think they announced a date or anything though when it's going to air.
Do you think the WWE has any dignity left?
Well, as soon as they show this show, I don't think so, because it's just, we always talk about the curtains being pulled back, but now they pulled them back and set the bitches on fire. So now there's nothing to blind you from
They
what
didn't pull them back. They crashed them to the ground. They ripped them off.
right. And they still have time to cancel the show, but I doubt they will. But they've had to have a lot of negative feedback about this, because I can't imagine people like Herb Simmons always uses this. Wrestling is like a magic show. And everyone's always said, the outcome is predetermined, but how you get there is our choice. So in a magician show, magic is not real. But for that moment of time, you're stunned by the magic trick. And you always want to know how they do it, but they keep their mouth shut because it's a magic trick. And they keep that belief going that magic is real. Even though it's been, magicians have donned a mask and showed the tricks.
And that's what I was going to say. I've watched The Masked Magician, and you know what happens when I see someone perform those tricks anymore? I fast forward because I'm like, I already know this one.
Yeah. So, I mean, them revealing how they come up with the storylines and how long it takes them to get from one place to the next, and how they build from WrestleMania backwards. They're just pulling the veil back way too far, and they're taking away the magic, I think. But when you that question you asked, there's still a committee, even in Triple H's era. There's still a board that comes up, this storylines. A committee is probably the wrong word to say, but there's always been a group of writers. There you go, writers that come up with the situations. And then
Do they come from Disney, or do they come from Disney? Because you would think one of them would have something new.
At one point in time, they actually would put ads out in the newspaper, and hire people straight from the newspaper. But they've hired different actors. That I can't think of his name, but there was a famous actor.
Wasn't Freddie Prinze Jr. one for a little bit?
That's what I'm talking about. Freddie Prinze Jr., who's a famous actor. He was a writer for a long period of time, and now he's been talking for like the last 6 months, maybe even more, that he is wanting to start his own wrestling company. Actually, he's not. He's wanting to buy a wrestling company and take it over. He wants to buy something that's already out there, and it's already has a platform and is known, and then he wants to buy it and make it his own, which I think is it hardly ever fucking works. I mean, you can ask Billy Corgan about the NWA. He bought the NWA, and it you hear about it from time to time. You might catch it on YouTube or something, but they really don't have a platform because it's changed so much. You used to be able to see it on the WB.
Like I say, they had a really good opportunity for one, and then decided to put drugs on their show.
Yeah, and so
if it wasn't for Smashing Pumpkin royalties, I don't think Billy would be able to keep it going.
I don't think so either, because right now, most of the time, to catch the NWA, you got to go buy a concert ticket to Smashing Pumpkins, and the NWA plays between bands. So, I mean, I just don't think Freddie Prinze Jr., he just needs to start his own company. But still, like Larry
he could join Billy and come up with some storylines and go from there.
Larry Madison used to say, "How do you make $1 million in professional wrestling? You
I'm in
start
with 10.
with 5 million and you lose 4 and you still kept the million. You know, it's very hard to keep a wrestling company alive and, you know, be in the top 1 or 2 companies. I mean, you know, Herb Simmons has been a promoter for 52 years, and you know, we're known all over the world because he gets text messages from Canada and New Zealand and all these other countries. Uh, but you know, it's a fight for him to keep pushing. You know, and you know, we just did our 3rd Fan Fest, which is great. Hopefully, you know, we push for Fan Fest 4, but we don't know. You know, it's always in a limbo right afterwards because you need to make sure that you made enough money to keep it going and stuff like this. And I don't know the numbers, so I don't want to say anything, but hopefully, you know, Fan Fest 4 is still in the future. But, you know, it's one of those things that it's a struggle. You know, Billy Corgan's struggling. You know, TNA went through years of struggling. You know, when they dropped the name TNA, went to Impact Wrestling, it was a struggle. And now they're back to TNA, and now they're trying to fight. And they even got some WWE money to kind of help them, and they're still struggling. So
WWE money to gut them.
Yeah.
true. But kind of off subject. So let's get back. So, do you guys think, or maybe you guys already answered it, Vince McMahon buying the WWE out of the question?
I don't think it'll happen.
I think it's out of the question.
I don't think it's going to happen either. I think the company, I mean, this is going to lead us into the WrestleMania topic that I wanted to talk about next. But I think TKO, since Foreman has, you know, we talked about previously how they kind of upped the cost of everything, ticket wise. And now they come out with these other things where you can spend the evening with Hulk Hogan for $1,500 and see him for like 30 seconds. I seen an advertisement. I can't remember what pay-per-view it is, but it's one that's coming up. Kevin Nash is now in the place of Hulk Hogan. You can hang out with Kevin Nash in his not press box, but his own private box or something like that. And they didn't talk about price, but I bet you it's one of those things when you look it up, you're like, holy shit. But
Well, I'd rather spend an evening hanging out with Kevin Nash than Hulk Hogan, but still. I mean,
But-
it's the same as when you would spend the money to go to NASCAR and you would see the drivers for 30 seconds in the pit, and then they'd ignore you because they have a job to do.
you know, but I heard that when you bought that thing to see Hulk Hogan, you know, he spends like bare minimum time in that box with you, takes your picture, gives you your autograph, and then he leaves. He doesn't even stay in there and watch. And I can't imagine Kevin Nash is going to be I can imagine Kevin Nash doing the same thing. You know, go into the box, take the pictures, sign the autographs, and jets. But to spend all that kind of money, you know, like I said, they're basically kicking the families that can't afford that to the curb.
And Jim, didn't last week you say that they were stopping doing house shows, or was that when
Yeah.
or 2 weeks before? Well, there's Billy's end right there. He just needs to pick up doing house shows and do what the NWA did before. Just try to do it something slightly different, upgraded.
Yeah, I mean, and he's kind of doing it, but man, it just takes forever, and it's going to be a struggle for him for a while. You know, he's got a territory in Chicago. He's got a territory here in St. Louis with WLW. He's got one in Tennessee. I think he's got one in Florida. And of course, you know, the one that Brandon Beretta works for in Ohio. It's Ohio,
Exodus.
right? Yeah,
Is that
Exodus Pro.
IDW? Is that what you're talking about?
Exodus Pro is the one that
Oh, Exodus.
and so you got all these smaller territories, and each territory is ran by one of the guys in the NWA. So WLW kind of is by Leland Race, but you got Trevor Murdoch overseeing it. X Bro. What'd you say? What was the name of it again?
Exodus.
Exodus is ran by EC3, which is a former NWA champion who's currently still a star for them. The one in Chicago is also from the owner of that one is in the NWA. So, I think he's doing it right, but it's going to take him forever to get that process built up, where he's generating, good money for everyone, not just him, but for each, territory.
So he can bring in Freddie Prinze Jr. and Freddie can bring in his wife, Melissa, and they can do appearances and there's ways he can do it to bring the people in.
So I'm going to reel in our next topic, which is WrestleMania being pulled from New Orleans and put back into Las Vegas. And the only reason why right now, if you can Google search this too, and the only reason why they're saying is because the ridiculous amount of money that last year's WrestleMania made for them, they don't think they can get that out of New Orleans. So they've already promised New Orleans 2 other pay-per-views to replace WrestleMania, but it looks like from here on out, WrestleMania might be held only in Vegas. Now,
Which it's owned by TKO. They love all their UFC there because they make so much money there.
and that's what they're saying too, is that all the higher ups in TKO live in Vegas. So they're all right there. Most of the MMA shows are in Vegas. They do tour every now and then. But that's what Raw and SmackDown's going to be, and Saturday night's main event. So looks like, and I heard that they promised WrestleMania overseas. I forgot what country they promised one to. So there might be one overseas, but it looks like the majority of them is going to be held in Vegas. Again, because they're money hungry and they got a shit ton of money this year from having it here, there in Vegas, which again, they're just, we heard stories about people maxing out their credit cards, taking loans out just for their tickets to go there.
A bank loan to go to a wrestling show. How crazy is that?
Yeah, to me, and that's crazy. And the only thing that's going to stop this from happening is people needs to start, maybe watching the NWA or watching TNA or, AEW and, stop the viewership of WWE. But as long as
your local wrestling.
Yeah, support your local wrestling. We had over 30 legends at our fan fest, and I feel like we should have had a shit ton more fans come, because we had so many people from so many different eras, so many different companies at the fan fest, and it surprised me. I mean, we had a decent crowd, but I thought for sure, with WWE being in town like 1 or 2 weeks, and that could have been why, because Backlash.
People might have had to pull their loans out to go to Backlash.
Yeah, they could have
Yeah.
spent all their damn money going to Backlash.
Like I said, I looked up that Friday before, I think it was, for me and my 3 boys, after fees and everything, the nosebleeds were over $600.
And not to throw politics in there, but we have a president right now that's trying to fight to lower inflation and all this stuff, and bring down the gas prices. But there's still places like the WWE that's trying to jack all their shit back up. You know, it's crazy. But yeah, so I think it's bullshit. You know, they already promised New Orleans, and supposedly the contract was signed, sealed, and everything, and they still, you know, by the art of persuasion, you know, dangled the two pay-per-views in front of New Orleans, and they jumped on that. But still, bringing a WrestleMania, that's not like a regular pay-per-view. That's bringing like 2 weeks of wrestling to your state. You know, all the build up leading to WrestleMania. So you got Raw, you got SmackDown, you got the NXT Takeover, you got the Hall of Fame, and you got all the little like the Dead Man, you know, Undertaker's show that happens before WrestleMania. So you got like a week's worth, plus all the independent companies that jump to that city. You know, because Vegas, well, I think the last count was like 33 independent wrestling companies jumped to Vegas that week. And some of the independent wrestlers were wrestling 4 shows a day for different organizations. It wasn't the same organization. It was that many promotions in town to try to capitalize off of WrestleMania. So you got
And,
so many.
and that's great because that gets the independent profile out. But again,
But I'm saying New Orleans just lost all that, you know,
and
and
there had to be some sort of a side deal.
yeah, because like, I agree with you. You think New Orleans would, if it was signed and delivered, New Orleans would be suing them right now. You know, there
Not
has
a
to be
chaos.
something.
Was the contract with New Orleans or was it with the Allegiant Stadium?
I don't know.
I say if it wasn't made with the city itself, the city's not going to sue.
Well, most of the time when you hear that a pay per view is coming to town, it's the city that pays for the pay per view. You know, and then they get the kickbacks of the people coming to their city to.
Oh, I'm sure they got plenty of kickbacks not to sue.
Yeah, I mean, it's to me, WWE is still money hungry, and they're like I said, they're pushing out uh, what the company was built on, which was families going there, you know, enjoying a wrestling show that was cheap enough that the fans and the family could have a great night of food and drink and watching the show. I think they're pushing them all out, and it's just going to be, I don't know, like months ago. You know, like here in St. Louis is a big story about how people were finding out that you can write a check to yourself and deposit it into an ATM and pull the money out, even though you might not have such money in the ATM or in your checking account. So you sign a check for $1,500, you deposit it into the ATM, and then you immediately withdraw that money, and you trick the system. You know, I think these people
Don't do
that
that,
are,
people.
oh yeah, totally against the law, and they're all getting busted for it. But I think it's the same idea that these people are getting loans out for a wrestling show, and now they have to pay for these loans. So they're finding out what they did. You know, sure, it sounded great at the time. Let me just get a loan for $1,500 so I can buy my airplane ticket and my WrestleMania ticket. But then you got to come back to reality and work your ass off to pay off your loan. You know, so
I mean, if only they were taking 1,500 reader, they were taking $40,000 and $50,000 loans.
yeah, because Front Row was 50,000, and Randy Orton actually got in a little bit of trouble because someone recorded him talking to fans that he heard that they had paid 50,000 per ticket, and he even said that's just outrageous, you know, and that he doesn't subscribe to that amount of money for tickets to wrestling shows. And
The thing about Randy is he's a good guy. So
yeah, I mean, well, he knows because his whole family has been in the wrestling business and grew up in the wrestling business, and so he knows. You know, it's you know, wrestling fans come in all walks of life. We have, especially, well, everywhere, there's a group of fans that we have that come off of a bus that gets dropped off, and there's some from nursing homes. There's some for um, people
Well,
that
we have the special
handicap,
needs one guys
yeah,
the
special
guys and girls
needs,
that one.
and then we have owners of racetracks, but then we also have doctors and lawyers that want wrestling. So I mean, they come in all walks of life, and if you're only
And
going
they
to
all
accept
come to
the
SICW
highest,
show.
yeah, if you're only going to accept the highest bidder to buy your tickets, you're wiping out, a good half of your fan bases, and especially those that are, since they're not doing house shows anymore. Normally, the house shows are cheaper and more family, beneficial for them to buy tickets to. So now you're wiping out those. So that means you're only going to be, uh, you know, the main shows are the only ones you're going to be able to go to: a Raw, a SmackDown, or pay per view. So those are all
And,
going to be premium dollar tickets.
and that's
You're
the problem with a major corporation running this wrestling program, because they're going to see absolutely nothing wrong with anything you just said, because people are still buying those high price tickets and their bottom line's still looking good without doing as much work. From a corporation standpoint, they're looking great. That's the problem with the corporation running it.
yes,
And it's a problem with the type of corporation running it because it still subscribes to the Mitt Romney view of economics. Short-term gain, but long-term liability. And that's what's running TKO.
to me, it's just like the UFC, and it's the same company. But the UFC, normally only did one pay per view a month. Of course, they had, little, what's the word, expeditions, that wasn't, you know, on cable or on pay per views. It's just little things to get the fighters advanced higher up in the brackets, and then they can start making the pay per views. Well, they're eliminating all that and just going with the pay per views. And UFC is the same thing. All the tickets for UFC are high dollar premium tickets. Um, but they're forgetting about those expedition matches that gets those guys up to that level. Um, but yeah, so I mean, I think it's horrible in both things. Vince McMahon wanting to buy the product bank, I think like Bobby said, he could have done it when it was still a private company, or before TKO emerged and all that came out. Two, I don't think he should buy it back if he gets convicted of any of these sexual type of things that he's been talked about in the public. And WWE is just now a money hungry fucking company. you know.
Well, like Bobby said, they're printing money right now, and that's all they cared about.
Right. On a different note, I'm just going to throw in here real quick, since he was a longtime member of WWE, Jim Ross has had another cancer scare. He had what was it called, Nathan?
Prostate cancer.
Cancer. But it was announced today, and this is the only reason I'm bringing it up, is just that he had surgery to get that removed, and so far they're thinking they got it all. So just keep Jim Ross in your thoughts and your prayers for a speedy recovery on this. I know he's announcer for AEW right now.
Is it the diverticulitis, or however you pronounce that then?
No. So
I know he's had that in the past.
Yeah, diverticulitis, I think is what you're talking about, and that's something different. That's not cancer. Because sometimes you can have a surgery, like my wife, she had her gallbladder taken out, and when they were in there taking that out, they just nipped her intestines, and that now causes her to have diverticulitis. which is just a painful inflammation of your intestines. But it's not like colon cancer. Matter of fact, my grandfather passed away from colon cancer. But two different things, but thank God they got it. And hopefully he gets, the care that he needs to get back to living life regularly and get back to AEW and being that awesome not ring announcer, but broadcaster that he is. Because, him and Jerry the King Lawler, I think, was the best announce team there ever was. That was back in the Attitude Era for WWE or WWF. But yeah, just thoughts and prayers to him. So I just wanted to shout that out before I forget it. What else was some topics? Oh,
We had the independent.
Yes, let's talk about the independents. So here in St. Louis, there was 3 Hall of Fames. You got SICW's St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame, which inducts the legends that worked in St. Louis, but also gives awards to independent wrestlers. The ones that have done so much for St. Louis, like the Ron Powers that just got awards this year. Danny Boy got an award this year. Last year was Gary Jackson. But there's another independent Hall of Fame, which we have a small little video that we want to play that kind of talks about who's going in to the Independent Hall of Fame this year. So Frank Reed, Mark Bland, Ace Strange, Peggy Mender, we'll talk about that award. Steve Sharp, Doc Lombardi, Luke Roberts, Jeremy Lightfoot, Douglas O'Shea, Ed Smith, Pete Madden, awesome guy there. Bobby's favorite,
Bobby's
Mr.
girlfriend.
So the Hall of Fame, there's the date, June 22nd, which is cool. It's $30 in advance, $35 the day of the show, but it's actually a meal as well. So you go there, you have dinner, and I couldn't catch the restaurant, where it's being held, but it's a restaurant, and they do the Hall of Fame, and then the food is catered by the restaurant, so you get a great meal as well. And that's what the $30 or $35 if you buy it at the day of the show.
Andre's Banquet Center at 4254 Telegraph Road in St. Louis.
Yeah, so it's a great evening. The independent wrestlers that we just announced is going into the Hall of Fame, so you'll get people like Herb Simmons is going to be there, and I know he's inducting Ed Smith. Or at least I heard that he was asked to induct Ed Smith. I personally don't know Herb's schedule, but I know that he was asked. Me and Bobby have connections with almost all these people. Jeremy Lightfoot helped teach me and Bobby when we first started in the business.
He probably did more of my training than anyone else.
Doc Lombardi, and I might be butchering his last name, but he was a manager of mine for a while when I first started.
Jeremy was on the show.
What'd you say?
I said Jeremy Lightfoot was on the show.
Yeah, Jeremy Lightfoot was on the show, and Doc is Jeremy's dad. So they've been in the business a long time. Of course, Frank Reed, he was one of the first promoters that gave me and Bobby a start in the wrestling company. When we kept getting fired by a certain company, Frank picked us up and let us run the ball with it, and we did a great job, and we're still doing it today. So, thank you, Frank, for giving us the start. Ace Strange was just a tad bit before my time. I've met the gentleman, but I've never worked with him. Mark Bland, I seem to run into Mark all the time at different companies that I've worked for. Um, and yeah, Mischief, she was in GCW.
She
And so was
was, as a 13 or 12-year-old boy, extremely admired her wrestling.
And she was one.
Me.
She was one that I thought would have made it. She was big in Japan. She would constantly go over there. She was big in the Midwest. She's I
big at
think,
Ring of Honor.
yeah, she was in Ring of Honor. So I thought for sure she was gonna make it. Her husband was a professional wrestler as well. I think they're divorced now, but her claim to fame, not her claim to fame, but in her matches, she would do a move, and then there was like a Mortal Kombat character
And
that would scream, and like as she screamed, your skin would peel off. If you remember that fatality, she had that high pitched scream as well, and she would do it in her matches, and it was just crazy. I still remember it. But yeah, so she's being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Steve Sharp, he's also in the movies. Steve Sharp, was actually in the movie that hopefully I was going to be part of. Now I can't think of the name of it, but
You
it
can
was
find it
got signed to
on Grinder.
no. You actually posted the video of it.
It's still on there too. I don't remember
Yeah.
the name of it, but if you go back on our page, anybody who's watching, you want to see it, it is on there. And
But
it's the only place you can find it now, because the place that I got it from isn't up anymore.
wow.
he
But
actually
he's
just got signed to another movie. I was trying to pull it up really quick. I was just reading about it earlier today. There it is. Don't Look Back. Oh, it's a TV series. Don't Look Back. They already started filming in LA.
yeah, but he's been in movies.
Awesome.
He's been in movies with CM Punk as well. But
And
he was
wasn't he in
he was in WCW for a while. He was
what's
in
that one show that was
OVW.
really big? It's like they're the record business.
Yeah, I remember it.
It was a very, very big show for only a
It
couple of
was
years, and then it fizzled out quick.
yeah.
But it was like the
WKRP.
number one show for a while.
No,
That
he's
is
not
way
that
too
old.
old.
He's not that old. But I remember him and his brother, Kevin Sharp. They were both in GCW. They were both in MMWA before as well. But
Well, I remember Kevin Sharp. I never don't remember Steve except for you talking about him all the time.
yeah, great guy. He last couple of years he was going around to all the independent companies and promoting them. And he was signing autographs for the fans, and then giving the money that he made for the autographs back. He would just pick out a person in the audience, or if he found out that someone had an accident and didn't have enough money to pay for things, he would give the money to them and just donate the money back. So Steve was a very awesome person. Bishop Stevens is his real name. And I can't say any bad things about him. He's been a great guy. Ed Smith, he was at Wrestling at the Chase. He was a referee there. He was an announcer for MMWA.
His son's
And
giving us good guidance.
yeah, and so like I said, I heard that Herb might be the one that does the introduction. I don't know if he's committed to that or not, but it was kind of cool to hear that. And the Smiths of 3 generation of wrestlers. You got Keith Smith, who was around the training days for us as well, and Keith Smith Jr., who's still wrestling. Douglas O'Shea. This is a gentleman I never worked with, but always wanted to. He was called the Irish Devil. And John Blackheart, great guy. When I first started, before I even knew Bobby, John Blackheart was the one that would, give me all the tips and tricks in the business that aren't really used anymore. Because he would say if you had a problem professionally with another wrestler and you had him in a match, what I want you to do is take a bottle of lemon juice and dump it all over your hands right before you go out down there and wrestle him. And first thing you do is you rake his damn eyes, to get the lemon juice in his eyes. It was all that kind of stuff. John Blackheart, great guy. But Douglas O'Shea is getting that award. And Douglas O'Shea is been around the business longer than I have. He tagged with Bob Orton Jr. and RCW. He's got in a little bit of a pickle with IEW. He's one of the owners of IEW, I think. At least I think he still is. I'm not 100% sure. I don't follow them too much. But still a great guy in my book. And I wish I could have wrestled him, but he had a pretty bad heart attack a year or two ago. And it kind of, made him pull out of the business. Let me talk about this too. Everyone who's going into the Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame are people that are retired. So they don't want you to be a current wrestler or current manager. The only exception was some of these people. They had, Frank Reed just passed away not too long ago, and they just had his benefit wrestling show this past weekend. Matter of fact, it was this past Saturday, and a lot of people came to that and had something to do with it. I think Jeremy Lightfoot actually wrestled in it, but truly Jeremy is retired, but he just did it because it's, a Frank Reed tribute show. And I think Doc was there, and a lot of other people that's going into this Hall of Fame. But I just wanted to point that out, that these are people that are retired from the business that are going into this Hall of Fame. Yeah, and fortunately, Ed Smith, he's been passed for quite a few years. So that's a bad thing. Frank Reed, like I said, he passed away a few months ago. But skim through some of the other ones, Nate.
So you got Luke Roberts, longtime announcer we all know very well.
Yeah, Luke, he was in MMWA, South Broadway, as you'd say. That's where I met Luke. But since then, become really good friends. And, it's one of those friends that you have. You might not see him for 6 months, but the day you see him, you pick up just like it was yesterday. And that's how me and Luke are. And out of the blue, we'll text each other or Facebook each other, and it's like we never lost a beat. So he's going in. He's no longer doing the ring announcing. He's mainly doing a podcast now. Kind of like how we are talking about the other companies. There is a company out in St. Louis, but it's not even in St. Louis. I would say there's a company in Missouri that he normally promotes for on his podcast. But they also talk about WWE and stuff like that as well. But very cool guy. He went to Vegas with us, I think, once or twice, and I want to say he went to Iowa as well. I'm not 100% positive on the Iowa, but I know he went to Vegas with us. Very deserving, like I said. He was doing that stuff when I got into the business. Pete Madden, oh my God, great guy. I was able to work him once right before he retired. But what was his hardcore? No, I don't think
Human
they call
Wrecking
him
Ball.
Human Wrecking Ball. Because he did a lot of hardcore matches, and he put his body on the line for all of them. But great guy, totally professional in the ring, and lovable outside the ring. He's just a fucking. he's the life of the party. So if you had a party, invite this guy too. And plus,
Like I
he's in a
say,
rock band right now.
you talk about him being the life of the party. That picture does not fit his current look. Current look is that long hair, looking like he lives on a surfboard.
You're right, right. He always posts about surfing too, so he's constantly doing it. But yeah, Doc, we talked about, is the manager of so many people, and yeah, he's retired. Both him and his son both have retired for quite a few years. But definitely, RCW was his mainstay. I think he was my manager for RCW, and I think a little bit of Broadway. Uh, Peggy, so Jerry Bullion, I think that's how you pronounce it, Bullion. He was a long time wrestling fan of the St. Louis area. He did the wrestling at the Chase, and him and his family, Peggy's his sister, you can still catch her and her family at wrestling shows, and she goes to all of them. And I say that, like, not all of SICW, but she'll go to SICW, she'll go to Broadway, she'll go to Dynamo Pro, she'll go to Chwa, she'll go to RCW. Uh, she's a
He
fan
loves wrestling.
of everything wrestling. And Jerry, passed away a couple years ago, and they started this award and called it after him. So it's basically the fans award, and they're giving it to his sister. And of course, she's still a great fan. Like I said, to this day, you'll still catch her at one of the shows. But she does go to all of them.
I see it all the time.
Yeah, so Ace Strange, he was one generation before me. He was at Broadway. He was like finishing up his career as I was getting mine originally started. So I can't say a whole bunch about Ace Strange. When I do hear people talk about him, it's always in a positive note. So I can't say anything negative about him because I don't know him. But then again, I can't really, say anything great about him because I don't know him either. But if you go to the Hall of Fame, I'm sure you'll hear a lot of people that respect him, and you'll hear stories about him that night, because that's what this Hall of Fame is for. It's there to celebrate people. And last year we had one of the, I wouldn't say he's the president, but he's one of the founders of this, and that's we call him Boss. I call him Boss to this day. But I had his name in my head, and now I just lost it.
Jim Harris.
Jim Harris. God damn it. But yeah, he will always be the boss to me because, even though he was a referee when I first met him, he just commanded respect, and everyone gave him respect. And if you did happen not to give him respect, he was a cop in St. Louis, and he always carried his billy club with him. And his handcuffs, and he would let it be known. He might stick you in the ribs with that club once or twice, and demand that respect.
When we used to have James Beard on, and there was talk about the referee that would, if they were good enough, they'd help guide a match and give advice and things like that. I always thought of Jim whenever we were talking about that.
Yeah, but if you go back into our catalog, we had Jim on. Last year, I think we actually had him on a week after the Hall of Fame. And that's just because we had so many things going on that we weren't able to promote this Hall of Fame beforehand. So we actually had Jim on afterwards.
We've had James on a few times, so.
Well, no, Jim Harris.
Oh, Jim Harris.
Yeah, Jim Harris we had on, I think, a week after the Hall of Fame happened. And I told him, when he was on last time, as a matter of fact, I should reach out to him and get him to come back on, and he'll be able to help us out with talking about these, like Ace Strange, and good, stories from him. So I'll reach out to him probably tomorrow. We'll get him back on because I promised him.
I just want to point out something real quick, and how many times you've been hit in the head. You forgot the name of a man that's a mentor and shares your namesake.
Like I said, I had it in my head until I said the word boss, because to me, he's always the boss. But yeah, I came from the generation that you didn't put your hands up when you took your chair shot. You took it to the skull, and I even did that, a couple months ago when I lost my belt to Kowalski because I failed to put my hands up or even block a few chair shots that I took right to the noggin, which was stupid of me. But I think the worst, though, was not his chair shots that night. The worst was this briefcase that Lucky P. Larson carries around that's been so dented up that there is no more give to this briefcase. And when you get hit by it, it's like getting hit with a bag of bricks. And I
Well,
think
I
that
remember that night, and you were kind of zoning out.
was, oof,
You were down.
it was a bad night because I didn't see it coming for one. At least after the first chair shot, when you don't hear it hit the ground and make that tickle sound, not tickle sound, but that metal clinging sound, it's coming again. But I did not see this.
I'm trying to figure out what the tickle sound is.
Yeah.
Is that like Uncle Herbert?
Yeah, well, maybe I'll show you a little later. But
Hey, you got your family. This ain't Arkansas. All right,
but
who's Mark Bland?
yeah, but yeah, so definitely we'll reach out to him. But yeah, Mark Bland, he came up in the same generation as Randy Orton. They were training together at South Broadway. As a matter of fact, if you talk to him right now, he'll probably tell you that he's best friends with Randy Orton. I can't prove it or can't, but he always talks about Randy Orton. But when I came into Broadway, he had switched roles from a wrestler to a manager. And then eventually, other companies that I worked for, he became like one of the inside guys that would, put things together, different cards together. So he's pretty much been everything, maybe except for a promoter. I don't think he's ever promoted his own show before. So other than that, he's been everything in the wrestling world, wrestler, manager, inside guy. So, but he is, I haven't seen him in the last couple of shows, but right now that Midwest Coalition, he's popped up as a manager. So I don't know. Maybe since I haven't seen him in the last couple of shows, maybe he's fully retired now.
All right, that's everybody. We've discussed everybody. Now, for some reason, Jim, you wanted to talk about some disgusting stuff. So you want to go ahead and see that? Because we're getting long in the tooth here.
Okay. So another thing, it was a clip that I seen on Facebook, and then it made its ways into other, messengers groups that I'm in. And to me, sometimes wrestling shit happens in a wrestling ring that does not belong in a wrestling ring. And sometimes it's, we talked about it before where people take hardcore too far. And other times it's different moves. Like there was a wrestler that got banned because he would have people grab his Johnson and pretend that he's able to flip them by the power of his Johnson. And that shit. It's not. It's not giving props to the wrestling world or the people that come before you. And when I seen this today, it was pretty like. It's definitely one of those things that should not have ever been done in a wrestling ring. I don't see. It's a fetish that you can find in another world.
We'll just say R. Kelly treatment, even though it's simulated, this stuff shouldn't be on there. And to kind of backtrack before I hit play on this and discussed all the 50 people who are going to watch it this far, is I wanted to do a show when Bobby was sick of wrestlers going to the extreme. Jim didn't want to do it, so we didn't, just based on the fact that we don't want to promote things like that.
Right.
showing it, because I wanted to be my namesake and be completely nasty and pretty much an ass throughout the whole thing with against the wrestlers and the people promoting it and the people watching it. But Jim didn't want to do it, and I saw better. This is one of those things. If I knew who these guys were, I would out them and make them just say it's completely disgusting and they should probably not be in the ring anymore. And the company that allowed it should close down because it goes beyond. I get freedom and all that stuff. This is just my opinion. I just don't think this should be a part of wrestling or family entertainment anyway.
Agreed.
My personal.
So he's simulating like a fetish, but in the same aspect, like why did that guy agree to that?
And then like what Bobby pointed out, why did the guy open his mouth?
Right. It's like this is this guy's claim to fame that he got simulated like he got pissed in the mouth. That's the only thing this guy is going to ever be known for, because there's no way he's going to make it to WWE. They're not going to promote that. They're not going to want to promote a guy who you can do a Google search and find this.
And the joke on Triggered Wrestling, where this came from, is that it's going to be a thing on AEW. Everybody's treating it like a big joke and not what it should be. Completely disgusting and should be banned.
Well, there's an art to wrestling. There's art
This
to a
isn't
match,
art.
and this isn't art. This has no respect for the business in my eyes. And like I said, not only the guy receiving it, but the guy doing it, this is all he's going to be known for. He ain't going to make it bigger than what he is right now. He is never going to be in fucking WWE. Most of the time when wrestlers get signed, they do a back history of that wrestler. And if they find something, even if you happen to get signed and somehow someone finds it, they reblast it. And if it's bad enough, they'll let you go. Because there was a wrestler not too long ago, probably within the last 6 years, that they found out was doing gay porn. And before he became famous. And when that came out, they found a reason to let him go. That's not the reason they let him go. But I tell you, within 6 months of that airing, resurfacing, I guess you would say, he was gone. And just like Paige in WWE, one of her sex tapes came out, and she got let go. Seth Rollins,
wrestler she was in it with, is still there.
Right, which is weird. But Seth Rollins, before he made it, and he had just got signed to the WWE. Now, granted, he was in NXT, but this was before NXT was his third brand. It was literally just the training. There was photos taken of him, and she released it, and she was signed to NXT. But since she released it and he didn't, he stayed, and they let her go. So it's different things, but definitely this should have never been. It's not classy, and it's not giving back to the world of wrestling and the art of wrestling. Yeah, and that's all I got to say about it. I don't want to show off anymore or promote him anymore than saying how disgusting it was.
Well, in our thumbnail, I'm just going to put disgusting right across it so people know our view.
Perfect. All right, so this is my favorite time. Action figures, literally not just wrestling, because I've kind of expanded my action figures that I buy. I will start off with some wrestling. I finally picked up the latest Sting wrestling figure from AEW, It's his pay-per-view limited edition one. I think it's very cool because it's got two heads in there that you can do. He's full face painted, and then he's got one where he's half face painted. And what it was is in that pay-per-view, his last match, when he was wrestling, he lost half of his face paint. So they redid an action figure over it.
Well, did he wrestle at the Aviator Hotel?
No, he would have lost all of his face paint at the Aviator. The other one I picked them both up at the same time. This is Rosie. Now, Rosie, this is what they call a chase. And then his regular figure actually has, I think it's in purple and has a big R on it. But this is the chase. And, so this is what his other figure looks like. They released them at the same time, but only few of them look like this. Now, this just makes me smile and laugh because when he wore this costume, there was a big S on the shirt. And he was partners with Hurricane Helms, and he would dress up as like a superhero figure. And Rosie was his tag team partner, which was known as Superhero in Training. So you can get what that stands for. So this was a great character in the world of wrestling, and I'm sure the parents hated it when they spelled out his name, but very cool action figure.
Yeah, because they capitalized each letter.
Yeah. SHIT. But so what what I've actually been picking up on is different action figures that of like movies I liked growing up as a kid. I picked up two figures from the Police Academy. I never knew they had action figures. But I picked up two of those, but they're in a case, and I have so many that I picked up from another movie.
Well, did you get Hightower and Bobcat?
So I did. So the two that I got is Hightower and Mahoney. Those are the two that I got. And I picked that up. I'm going to give a shout out because they help promote SICW. It's a store downtown Belleville called I Had That. Those is where I picked them up. And I do pick up some wrestling figures from them as well. I also picked up some Dick Tracy figures from them. So Dick Tracy is the other movie that I love the movie. I love that gangster. I love gangster movies in general, but
which version of Dick Tracy? Are you talking about the Warren Beatty one or the older one from the 40s? And
dude, I'm not that fucking old.
I haven't seen either one.
You haven't seen Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty? Dude,
I know he wears the yellow trench coat. That's about all I know about him.
It has so many classic actors in it. You got to see it. But
Dick Tracy comes out of a giant clam. You can see where they were going with that movie.
But these ones I actually picked up still in the package. And
see, that's the old version, the 40s version right there.
No, this is not. So Dick Tracy's was more of a cartoonish movie about gangsters. And it was so cool. You know, this is the Dick Tracy right here. This is Warren Beatty. Minus the yellow trench coat. But these figures are still so cheap right now. Most of them, there's some of them that shows the price tag of $1.99 when they originally came out. That's how much they cost. Granted, I paid more than $1.99 at this day and age, especially since they're still in the package. But like the names, this guy's called Itchy. It's just great.
What's the name of the one with the giant jaw? What was his name?
This one's called the Rodent because he looks like a mouse. There was one that's called Lips. That could have been the one you're talking about. I actually have two rodents because that was in a lot. This one is called Al Big Boy Caprice. But
Not
Big
him. That's
Boy,
what I'm talking about. Big boy.
this guy was played by Al Pacino in the movie.
Yeah,
So
I know who that is.
this one's called The Tramp. They actually recalled this one and renamed him because they felt like The Tramp was not a proper name for a kid's toy. But I don't have them all. And the ones that there's some that I have packaged, but I don't have loose, and there's this, other ones that I have loose that I don't have packaged. But I'm happy with the collection that I have, so I probably won't get any more because normally I just like to get the main character and maybe a few others just to promote the line. But
You can get the
another one,
Madonna character.
no, because believe it or not, the Madonna one is about $1,500.
No, I believe.
Yeah, so the reason why is
Because she got silicones.
no, because they released it in Canada only. Because when the movie came out, they actually had the action figure line out literally maybe a month or two before the movie came out. And the thing about the movie is you don't know who the main villain is. You have all these characters that you think is the main villain, but you weren't supposed to know until you watched the movie and watched the end of the movie. But when the action figures came out, they released her action figure. And what it was is the action figure had a blank mask because throughout the movie, you didn't know who it was because the person wore a blank mask. And at the end of the movie, she revealed she took the mask off and it was Madonna. But the action figures were already out. So all you had to do was buy that one, take the mask off, and then you knew the whole plot of the movie. So to help fix that problem, instead of releasing that particular figure in the U.S., they only released it in Canada. I guess the people in Canada, they didn't care if they knew the end of the movie or not. So that is pretty fucked up. But yeah, so if you happen to be a kid with parents that was able to buy you this movie, the action figures, you already knew the plot of the movie or the
I like how
film.
you
It was
didn't even give
called,
spoiler alert before you told us the plot of the movie.
Right.
I didn't even
and
know.
it was called The Blank.
Yeah, the blank, because it was just a blank mask, so you couldn't tell if it was a male or a female. But so
I
these
also can't believe all the way May would do that.
It says that there were only 3,000 of the blank sent
yeah,
to
so it makes
seniors
it,
in Canada.
yeah, so it makes it very expensive for this particular figure. These other ones, like I said, you can buy these on eBay. I bought 6 of them in a lot for $50, so it made it look cheaper. But it's a line that's very cheap, and if you love the movie, it works. I also kind of went into like Alien and Predator, so I bought a couple here and there, but I have a box that just literally came today.
Light
I
bulb.
know what it is,
It's
but
light bulb. Says it on the outside.
what's the thing? Oh, light bulbs. Yes. So it's a pack of light bulbs that we're showing off in the action figure part of our podcast. So that makes perfect sense.
Are they incandescents?
But so Alien and Predator, both great movies. Very, they are so great that they have multiple movies. There's Alien. I think Alien's
And
up to like 6.
to tie it all back together, Predator had Jesse Ventura.
Right, back into wrestling. I like it. And plus, they had Alien versus Predator, which was a great movie. Sorry, this guy very much taped everything really well.
I can't see where you're figuring $1,500. The cheapest I found, the blank, is $5,200.
Well, on eBay, everything is what you would pay for it. So if you think it's worth $5,200, that's how much you're gonna pay for it. But some places,
Even at auction sites in Dallas, $5,200.
when I first started looking into this line, there was one on eBay for $1,500, and I didn't buy that one. So I'm pretty sure that was probably at least a month or two ago. So someone probably did snag that one up. But yeah, so this box is literally a box of Predators, because there's so many Predators. And of course, if you watch the Predator movies, there's so many different ones. But I just wanted a handful. I'm not going to go all out and get all these different Predators. And they make them big sizes that are, $100, $150 for them. But I just wanted to get a couple just to show off. I really like this one. This one glows in the dark. I actually want to get a whole bunch of glow in the dark figures. I have that Undertaker that I showed off not too long ago. And I have a Yoda, I think, that glows in the dark. But I think it's pretty cool just to get a bunch of these guys and get that light shining on them, especially if I put them in the case behind me, because then they'll, when you get the light on them and shut everything off, you got, Predator and the Undertaker that will glow in the dark. But, so these are, I think I paid $16 for 5 Predators. So, it's just different. This one's missing an arm though. So, but, very cool.
Lost in battle.
Yeah, he lost it in battle. But something very cool, very cheap. Again, I am a cheap person when it comes to most of my stuff. There's some things I would pay up for, like that, those 3 Spain toys that I got, the funky looking Hulk Hogan and Jim Duggan and Jake the Snake. But these are just something cool that I picked up just to, just have some fun and display them. Last thing I got is a big old box. And this is a wrestling figure. And it's someone that I talked about many times on the channel. Because I talked about how when wrestlers, most of them back in the day, they either developed a drinking problem or a pill problem. This particular wrestler didn't have either one of those two. This guy talked about another problem that he had.
Yeah, women.
And I've met this gentleman many a times. And the first time I met him, I was younger, and I shook his hand, and his hand actually dwarfed mine. Check this out. This is the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. This is such a big figure. Comes with the $1 Million Man belt. But damn, this is awesome. This classic superstars, Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man. These are called the Ring Giants. And again, this came out years ago. Let me see if they have the name. It's made by Jakks Pacific. They've had a different toy maker for at least 6 years, maybe longer. Mattel is their toy maker right now. Man, let me see. All this fine lettering. I can't see the date on these guys. But very cool. He's in his tuxedo. I've met the $1 Million Man many a times. Got his autograph on his books. Read both of his books. Talked to him about his dad. how his dad was his mentor, and it was actually his stepdad who was a wrestler. His mom was a wrestler, and of course they didn't want him to become a wrestler, but you've been around the business long enough and you like it, you do it. And Harley
Well,
raced.
I think it's funny how many old wrestlers never wanted their son. Same thing with Greg the Hammer Valentine. His dad didn't want him to go in it either.
The
Same thing with
Jackson
Randy Orton.
Pacific's giant figures were released in 2005.
2005. So this thing is 20 years old and still in the package.
Yeah, Bobby, you weren't born yet.
But this is awesome. I love it. You know, there's one thing about action figures or wrestling action figures. You can have all the guys on the roster out in action figure form, and they do. And then they'll produce like a Macho Man or an Ultimate Warrior, and those are the ones that draw me in. I will pick out one from my childhood probably 100 times more than I would pick out a guy that's a current wrestler. And that's it's just because they remind me of my childhood. I could care less about buying any WWE action figure right now. Like there's like 10 John Cena's that they just released because this is his last year of wrestling. And so they're trying to make as much money off of John Cena right now as possible. I can fucking care less about a John Cena. But if they produce a Macho Man Randy Savage, I'll probably pick that one up. Just because that's my childhood wrestler. If unfortunately the only one that I will probably put back on the shelf, and it's only because they make so goddamn many of them, is Hulk Hogan. I picked out. I think I showed it not too long ago. Oh, I think I put him up, but oh no, he just fell. I picked out Hulk Hogan's Japanese wrestler. It's just a reissue. They, put him in his black tights and his different color boots and knee pads. This is back before he was, yellow and red. But I picked him up because he was like $6. And he's still Hulk Hogan. So, and this is you hardly see these colors on a Hulk Hogan. And look at those 70, those glasses had to be in the 70s. But
Pretty sure I've seen that mustache on you.
Fu Manchu. Yeah, the current wrestling Walmart has an exclusive line of
NWO pack.
Well, no, I don't even like that one.
They want $70 for that pack. It's like, holy.
I will not pick those up. But Walmart has an exclusive rights to what they call WWE Superstars. It's and I showed them off here before. It's like the Papa Shangos, Earthquake, Tugboat. I moved them. So it's Honky Tonk Man, Ted DiBiase. I think last week I showed off the Andre the Giant one. Those are all classic superstars. I think they did put out a Rey Mysterio, and I have not bought that. But in my mind, he's not a childhood wrestling of mine. Maybe Bobby's, because Bobby was a WCW kid.
I still remember him trying to jump onto Kevin Nash, and he catches him and spikes him against the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, that was back when the NWO first started, and that was a great time in wrestling. Yeah, I give him that. And in theory,
Redwood though.
Yeah, in theory, Rey Mysterio Jr. has been wrestling for, over 20 years. But it was a lot of time in Mexico, a lot of time in WCW, and I was a WWF kid, so I've not bought the Rey Mysterio. But the Doink I bought, and
And
it's people like that,
for the record, that's well over 20 years. 20 years is like when he got to WWE 20 years ago.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
More than 20 years ago.
when
And what
he
was
was in,
WCW bought out in 2001?
yeah.
And
So
he went there before they were bought out.
right, because he was in ECW before WCW, and then before ECW was in Mexico. And, he talked about it in his Hall of Fame speech. Actually, his CAC speech that me and Bobby both went to, that he started wrestling like at the age of 12 or 13 in Mexico, because they don't have any age limits down there. And his family was already, involved in wrestling.
35 years.
35 years. So in theory, you would think I would buy him, but to me, he wasn't in the WWF, and that was my childhood, was WWF. The the 80s and early 90s. That's who draws my attention. So someone like Ted DiBiase, $1 Million Man, I'm gonna buy him over any of them that is the current day wrestling superstar from WWE. And that's just you buy these toys to bring back the nostalgia of your childhood. So maybe my grandson right now who is watching wrestling, maybe he will buy those toys that are out right now, 20 years from now. But yeah, I'll more or less pick up the stuff from the 80s. But that's all I got for for action figures or toys that I'm collecting. I've kind of widened my stuff, because I was just strictly wrestling, but now I've added, Predator, and I picked up one or two Aliens, and Police Academy and Dick Tracy, but I don't know. The wrestlers that I'm up to now are the ones that are too rich for my blood. So that's probably why I'm branching out to different things that still brings me back to my childhood and still will leave me some money in my wallet. you know. But I think we should at least hit a couple dates for you guys. We have 3 dates that are coming up pretty damn quick, and they're all in a row. We have Friday night, June 6th, I think it is.
Shawnee.
Yeah. Say that one more time, because I butchered this city.
Shawnee.
Shawnee, Illinois, which is I looked at it up. It's like 2.5 hours away from here. So it's a bit of a drive, and it's a Friday night. But they are bringing SICW to their city, and we are doing a triple shot. I think it's a triple shot, or it's a double shot, with Tommy Rich. He's going to be with us at least that Friday and that Saturday. I'm not too sure if he'll be with us on our TV tapings, which is that Sunday. But so Friday night, the only match that's been signed so far is him versus Attila in a street fight match. So that's going to be very interesting. But then Saturday, June 7th, we are not in Belleville where we normally are. We're back in the Collinsville, was it Fireman's Hall? Yep. So we'll be there that Saturday. And both nights, it's the same time. Doors open at 6, show starts at 7. And we'll have Tommy Rich that night as well. Don't know what he's going to be doing, but I'm sure he'll probably be seeking some revenge on Attila, because I'm sure that street fight, that's leaning towards Attila's type of wrestling match that he prefers. So, I pray for Tommy Rich on Friday, and then I hope Tommy Rich gets some revenge on Saturday. But either way, that Sunday, we have TV tapings at East Crondelet. So 3 cities, 3 different nights. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be hell. It's going to be everything. Especially on our bodies, 3 nights back to back to back. And then on the TV tapings, we might be in all 4 shows. So you might have six wrestling matches in 3 days. So it should be interesting. But like always, if you come to the Saturday show in Collinsville, that ticket stub will get you free into the TV tapings in East Cronolette, which that time will be at 12 o'clock noon, and normally takes about 3.5, maybe 4 hours. But it's all free for you on Sunday. So if you want to be seen on SICW TV on YouTube, and we are in other channels as well, because I forgot the TV programs that we are in down south. But there's other ways to see SICW wrestling. So if you want to see yourself on TV, come to Saturday's show, and then come to the free TV taping for you on Sunday. So I wanted to feel like we should plug those. We got some other shows coming up in later in June. I think June. I can't remember
22nd.
the date. 22nd?
Well, isn't it the 22nd?
I don't know. I was just asking. But that should be our first show at the Raceway. So
No, that's not the 22nd. It's going to be.
Ding.
We have it on my calendar, but it's not on there.
June 14th.
There
June
you go.
14th. So yes, just the following weekend. And we're going to have 3 shows that day. And I say 3 shows, but normally it's like a half hour there, a half hour there, another half hour. So it's going to be a good day at the Raceway in Granite City. And we're going to be there. So it's going to be great. So come for the wrestling, stay for the races. And we normally, some of us stick around and watch the races, or eat, or because they got a lot of great food there too. So definitely show up for that. But if you need anything else, go to sicw.org, like he has it on the screen right there. They'll have all of our list of dates and times and everything. And we're hitting our busy season. Summertime normally brings a lot more wrestling shows to different cities. So it's definitely picking up next month. We got 2 weeks. No, actually just 1 week in it. 1 week away starts it all. So definitely. I just want to say thanks again for all the people that come up to us at our Fan Fest and said that they enjoy watching our show. I've had a lot of people that I don't know come up to me and say that they caught one of our episodes. And I just want to say thank you for catching it. And thank you for, thinking that it was just great enough that you had to come up to one of the hosts and tell them. I'd love to hear all the stuff, good, negative, or I haven't heard any negative yet. So it must be all good. But, if you like it though, share it to your friends. Leave us a comment on the channel too, because all that helps us. If you like, subscribe, and comment, that all helps us in the algorithm. So if you can help us, that would be much appreciated. We have a great time doing this. We get to interview some of our, mentors, or sometimes, authors of different books or movie producers. So we have a great time doing this, and, help us out, share, like it. It'll be much appreciated. Plus, I believe it's the fans of the Square Ring podcast that love Bobby D so much, they willed him not to just win 1 championship, they willed him to win 2 championships. So he appreciates this as well. But anything else, guys?
I think that about covers it.
1 more week down in the books. So like I think I'm going to sign off every time like I did last time, which was we'll see you at the wrestling matches. I think I got that from the St. Louis wrestling tapes. I think that's how Larry Matisek signed off. We'll see you at the matches. I'm going to carry this on. So thank you guys for tuning in. I know you're going to catch this on Thursday, but definitely thank you for support, and keep sharing the podcast. But you guys have a good night, and we'll see you next week. See you at the matches.
I was like, you almost missed it.
Almost.
Squeezed it in at the very end.
He took off, didn't he? Damn.
He must have to poop.
Could be. It's that illegal drink he has in the Dr. Pepper box.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with them wine cans.
What are those? What's the two alcohol that you put together that tastes like Dr. Pepper?
Rum 151 and beer. But you gotta set the rum 151 on fire, you drop it in, and then it's only for a second that it tastes like Dr. Pepper.
No, but there's two hard liquors. We used to do it all the time. I forget what it is now.
We did the Flamin' Dr. Peppers when I was 14. I had an older brother that gave me plenty of access.
We're not advocating any 14-year-olds do this.
Nope, I had an older brother that was a bad influence and provided alcohol.
Oh, jam.